Today's sermon is titled Awakening the Heart of Compassion for All Life, to be delivered by Reverend Kerry, Kiyohara. Reverend Kerry Kiyohara is the resident minister of Makawao Buddhist Temple on the island of Maui, serving Honpa Hongwanji Mission of Hawaii. He was ordained as a priest of Judo Shinshu Hongwanji Jaha in 2016. Kerry graduated from Chuo Bukkyu Gakuin Seminary in Kyoto, was certified as a teacher and assigned as a Kaikyoshi missionary to Hawaii in 2018. Kerry previously worked as CEO, COO, CMO, consultant, and copywriter in Los Angeles, Tokyo, Beijing, Shanghai, and Honolulu. Kerry graduated with BA and MBA degrees from the University of Southern California and speaks English, Japanese, basic Spanish, and survival Chinese, but is mystified by Dakine Pidgin, Hawaiian, Creole English. Reverend Kerry.
Okay, well, good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me. Give me a thumbs up if the sound's okay. Very good. For Randy, I just would make a comment that the hardest thing to do in life is to make the video and audio work in Zoom. The Buddha never said that, but it's actually true. So I'd like to actually start with singing the audio that we were trying to play at the beginning. And following the cherry blossoms, it's a rather difficult act because that was written, very recently. And this one goes back to the 15th century. I'm sorry, actually goes back to the 13th century. And this was a style of music that was popular then. It's based on the Chinese pentatonic scale. So it's going to sound a little bit different, but it goes something like this. Yodo shin o uru toki o eshe do nazuketari eshe wa busho nari anyo ni darite satoru beshi. And the English translation of that is, when a person realizes the mind of non-discrimination, that attainment is the state of regarding each being as one's only child. This is none other than Buddha nature. We will awaken to it on reaching the land of peace. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo. These words were written by Shinran Shonin. It's essentially a hymn, but a little bit different than the hymns that you might be familiar with, obviously. But it speaks to a certain truth. So good morning, and aloha from historic Makawao town on the beautiful island of Maui in the great state of Hawaii. So this morning, you're going to hear 3 Hawaiian words quite a bit, and so I should probably explain those, because if you live in Hawaii long enough, you start using these words kind of naturally and unconsciously. So beginning with aloha, which is unconditional love offered freely. And this is very often used as a greeting. So hello and goodbye, you say aloha. Mahalo, gratitude and appreciation. But there's always this sense of being humble, that you have received something you really don't deserve, but thus you're humble and grateful, so mahalo. And then the aina, which is the land that we live on. And it's always, again, with a sense of reverence. So aloha to everyone, and mahalo for asking me to share this moment of an unrepeatable life with you today. I'm absolutely delighted to be sharing this moment with you today because in reflection, the causes and conditions that brought all of us together here today are literally countless and inconceivable. I first met Randy and Mary here in Maui sometime before 2019, I believe, But we did have a peace day observance at the temple here, Makwa Honganji Temple. And so I wrote a poem that was trying to express the Buddhist perspective on peace, for that particular gathering. Sorry, that's the slide with the English translation, so it's this one. Peace begins with the heart of compassion for all life. And that led to an invitation, to come and share the Dharma teachings with you in Cambria whenever you're in California. And so, okay, that'd be great. Which in turn leads to today, a wonderful and rare opportunity to be together that arises from these causes and conditions caused by a global pandemic and a public health emergency of all things. So without the heart of compassion for all life, all living beings, all forms of life, all people without discrimination or judgment, there can be no peace in our world, in our communities, in our homes, or inside ourselves. And thus, awakening the heart of compassion for all life becomes the key to peace. And this, of course, is one of the UU 7 principles. Respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are all a part. In the Mahayana Sutra, which are the words of the Buddha, we will find reference to the Vedic Deva, Indra, and the story of Indra's net, the net of jewels. And he uses a metaphor saying that reality as it is, this world is actually a net of jewels. And there's a jewel at each knot in the net, and each jewel thus is connected to other jewels, and each jewel is reflecting all of the other jewels at the same time. So this metaphor is designed to illustrate the truth of non-self, which leads to the truth of interdependent and interconnectedness, the oneness of all life, living beings, people, everything in this reality as it is. So Gautama Buddha, a Japanese tradition known as Shakyamuni Buddha, taught that the cause of suffering, unhappiness, and dissatisfaction in human life is simply because our ego insists me is real, it's permanent. Reality as it is, born human, right? Our bodies and minds will inevitably age and decay, become ill, and reach the end of life, and we die. So simply put, born human, we live this unrepeatable life as if it's about me, my ego, right? And thus we encounter disappointment, dissatisfaction, discontent in this unrepeatable life. So the Buddha taught the Dharma, reality as it is, the truth of non-self. So what we think of as me, my ego, the self is a transient illusion created by our all too human brain, which is desperately trying to process billions of data inputs from all of our all too human 5 sense organs, which are housed in this constantly decaying human body. In other words, the Buddha taught that me is an illusion, and yet we desperately cling to me, to the self, and insist upon living this unrepeatable life as if it's about me. So the Buddha taught that conflict arises because born human, everyone insists it's about me, and we're butting heads when the reality is everything is interconnected, interdependent, and all life is one. And thus, awakening the heart of compassion for all life means we must first recognize, accept, and actualize this truth of interdependence, interconnectedness in one's unrepeatable life. So the traditional path of discipline, as taught by Gautama Buddha, requires renunciation of this world, give up everything, shave your head, become homeless, wear rags, beg for all your food, and you got to study all the time. So chanting the sutras is how you memorize the words of the Buddha. You meditate for hours and hours and hours, and then you perform karmically virtuous acts until you realize awakening as a Buddha, or you die trying. So the path of discipline seeks to eliminate attachment to self, this false idea of self, to break the hold of me, my ego, over thoughts, words, and actions. So by giving up attachment to material things, giving up attachment to personal comfort, giving up attachment to how we're perceived by other people, and focusing solely on the truth, the search for truth, the goal of Buddhist practice is to simply realize and actualize, it's not about me, it's not about me in this unrepeatable way. So from that perspective, Buddhism is simply about going from it's about me, our human nature, to it's not about me. That's it. Okay, end of Dharma talk. No, it doesn't work that way. Because, right, so we're trying to get to it's not about me. But the reality, the challenge, of course, is that becoming a monk, not an option for a lot of people. And so it's said that there are 84,000 gates to the Dharma, or paths that lead to the truth. And I am ordained in the Jodo Shinshu Honganji tradition of Buddhism that was founded by Shinran Shonin 800 years ago in 13th century Japan. So Jodo Shinshu Buddhism is part of the Pure Land tradition, just part of the Mahayana stream of Buddhism. So in the 12th and 13th centuries, Shinran spent 20 years as a monk on Mount Hiei, the center of Buddhism in Japan at the time. But he failed to find the truth that he sought. So he pursued the traditional path of discipline. By all accounts, he was really good at it, but he did not find the truth he was seeking. So Shinran comes off the mountain, he leaves the monastery, he seeks a different path and encounters his great teacher, Honen, who teaches the Pure Land doctrine. Shinran's insight was that try as he might, right, for 20 years, he tried his best, but his ego, right, was too big, too hard, too stubborn for even 20 years of Buddhist practice to crack. Shinran realizes, despite knowing and practicing the truth of Buddhism, it's not about me. In the end, for Shinran, it is about me. And so he realizes that he's only human, and thus cannot realize nirvana. He cannot extinguish the flames of craving and desire, cannot awaken as Buddha on his own power. He discovers the spiritual truth he seeks through the working of the great compassion and great love of Amida Buddha that assures our birth into the Pure Land and thus becoming Buddha, returning in oneness with Amida to this world to guide others to their birth. Now, this teaching, right, Amida offers a path for anyone and everyone who is only human to become Buddha, right, through birth in the Pure Land. Now, this comes over to the plantation villages in Hawaii in the late 19th and early 20th centuries with this huge wave of Japanese immigration. So the earliest expressions of Jodo Shinshu Buddhism in English includes The Golden Chain of Love, which was written by Reverend Dorothy Hunt. She was the first non-Japanese woman to be ordained in a Japanese Buddhist tradition. And I'm just taking one line out of the poem that she wrote, and it says, "I will try to be kind and gentle to every living thing and protect all who are weaker than myself." And this is from the Golden Chain of Love by Reverend Dorothy Hunt. So even as a child, I thought this was a really realistic view of human nature. I will try to be kind and gentle to every living thing and protect all who are weaker than myself. But this aspiration also speaks to the Buddhist teaching of non-self, the interconnectedness and interdependence of all life. So Jodo Shinshu in the Honganji tradition reflects Shinran's journey from it's about me to it's not about me, and then back to it's about me again. In the recognition and acceptance of our limitations and weaknesses, because we are only human, we discover the truth of Amida's vow to save all life without discrimination or judgment. You don't have to be rich, you don't have to be educated, you don't have to be powerful. This truth, this path is open to everyone. So returning to the words of Shinran Shonin, when a person realizes the mind of non-discrimination, that attainment is the state of regarding each being as one's only child. This is none other than Buddha nature. We will awaken to it on reaching the land of peace. No. So let's see, where are we? So the mind of non-discrimination, or the mind of absolute equality, treating everyone, right? The state of regarding every being as your only child. Right? This is the mind of Amida. This is the mind of non-discrimination you achieve when you become Buddha. This mind of non-discrimination or absolute equality is further identified as Buddha nature, right? The inherent potential to awaken to reality as it is, to realize nirvana, to become enlightened. The key insight is in the concluding line. We will awaken to it on reaching the land of peace. The land of peace is another word for the Pure Land, or Sukhavati, the land of bliss, which is the Buddha realm created by Amida. So in other words, we will realize the mind of non-discrimination, the state, and achieving the state of regarding each being as one's only child, realizing our Buddha nature when we're born in the Pure Land. oh, after we die. From an American culture perspective, this is a very unsatisfying answer. Because in American culture, we're taught, and we insist, it's about me. Right? My college educated, my MBA brain says, my ego insists I can achieve anything, including the mind of non-discrimination. Through my own effort, the sheer force of my intellectualism, my hard work, or by cheating other people, somehow or another, I'm going to get there. So my ego insists, it's those other people who are racist or bigots or supremacists. My ego insists, I have Buddha nature, those other people don't. Thus, I am better than they are. And this is the dualistic mind. Our human nature desperately clinging to this illusion of self. And this was identified by Shakyamuni Buddha 2,600 years ago as the cause of human suffering. The truth has been in front of us for 2,600 years, and we still say, it's about me. So Jodo Shinshu, the Honganji tradition, as taught by Shinran, urges us just to awaken to our unexceptional human nature, right, which is to cling desperately to this egocentric view of the world, right, despite knowing the truth. Despite knowing the truth. It's not about me. And yet we insist, it's about me. In awakening to our absolute human nature, we begin to see Buddha nature absolutely. We begin to perceive the Buddha nature inherent in all people, in all life. So the realization of just how limited is our ability to accept all people just as they are is what awakens us to the true magnitude of Amida's great compassion, which accepts us just as we are. In the best case, we try our best to accept others just as they are, but we always fall short of our aspirations because in the end, we are utterly and simply only human. In the worst case, we delude ourselves into thinking, oh, I have achieved the mind of non-discrimination and already regard all people in all forms of life as my only child. It's those other people who have problems. So, are we doomed to an endless cycle of discrimination or hatred and violence? Are we doomed to an endless cycle of suffering, birth, and death in the world of samsara, this human realm of confusion and delusion? And as honorable friends and fellow followers on the path of searching for truth, of course not, of course not. As Buddhists, we are all striving to awaken to reality as it is. It's not about me. In the Honganji tradition, Shinran taught that the true cause, the decisive cause of birth in the Pure Land is the faith of Shinjin. Shinjin meaning to gratefully receive the entrusting heart, the heart that can entrust through the working of Amida's compassion and wisdom in our lives. Shinjin is the mind of non-discrimination and the heart of great compassion, which we do not realize through our own self-power, but through the working of Amida's vow to save all people without discrimination or judgment. So Shinjin doesn't mean that we should stop trying to awaken to our true nature as self-centered, ego-driven, unexceptional, only human, just regular people. Indeed, it's only through determined self-reflection that we can begin to comprehend the depth of our attachment to self, my ego, our need to manipulate how other people perceive us, and our deep-seated craving to feel superior to others. So true self-awareness is painful, it's humiliating, it's humbling, but it is the source of true gratitude when we live life from the attitude, it's not about me. So cultivating the heart of compassion, awakening bodhicitta, the heart of compassion, is at the core of all Buddhist practice. But there's so much distraction in our modern world. There's so much noise in our heads. And we are consumed from the inside by anger, greed, and ignorance. And thus, in the Honganji tradition, Amida's compassion and wisdom offers all sentient beings, all life, the path to birth in the Pure Land, a way to become Buddha through Namo Amida Butsu, the Nembutsu, or mindfulness of Amida's compassion working in our lives. When we truly hear the calling voice of Amida in Namo Amida Butsu, which is the phrase that the three women were singing in the anthem, we simultaneously awaken to our all too human limitations and the unlimited, infinite, boundless compassion of Amida working constantly to guide us to liberation from fear, doubt, and uncertainty in this unrepeatable life. When we truly hear Namo Amida Butsu, we realize that the calling voice of Amida is coming from within us. It is our human nature that is our Buddha nature. And Amida knew this 10 kalpa, billions of years ago, and created this path of Nembutsu for us alone. So on this day, let us reflect on our true human nature and recognize our human limitations. Let us strive to awaken Bodhisattva, the heart of compassion, to gratefully receive the faith of Shinjin, to realize true peace of mind, and together share the Dharma, the Buddha's teachings with all people, without discrimination or judgment, so that wisdom and compassion, peace and harmony spread throughout the world. Mahalo for listening this morning. Thank you, thank you, thank you for listening. And may your day be filled with aloha. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. In trusting and all-inclusive wisdom and all-embracing compassion for the great enlightenment to come. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo. Well, thank you very much, and back to you.